The honourable member from Battle River Crowfoot. I hope I did get it right. Battle River Crowfoot for 10 minutes, and followed by 5 minutes questions and answers.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And as always, it's an honour to be able to stand in this place and debate the important issues facing Canadians, and specifically those good people that send me here from the beautiful constituency of Battle River Crowfoot in East Central Alberta. Mr. Speaker, if I could, being that this is the last sitting day prior to Remembrance Day, there's a couple of quick things that I would like to reference, and Mr. Speaker, I hope you will give me the latitude to do so. Mr. Speaker, today I met with Harold and Mike, members of the Persian Gulf Veterans Association of Canada. And Mr. Speaker, it was an interesting meeting where I had the opportunity to hear from these two distinguished retired servicemen about how their time in service to our country is not considered having been one that was fought in a war. So, Mr. Speaker, I wanted to acknowledge that specifically here today as an appropriate commemoration, truly, I believe, would be to ensure that those who have served in our country's armed forces, especially during times of conflict, are acknowledged accordingly. So, Mr. Speaker, just wanted to, as I get into the substance here on Bill C-34, acknowledge that, because I don't think I'll have a chance to do so otherwise before Remembrance Day, and of course, all of us in this place honoring the sacrifice made by so many. Mr. Speaker, we join into debate here on Bill C-34, a bill where there are 7 parts that address a host of issues in relation to the amendments to the Investment Canada Act. And in particular, there's a few things that I would like to highlight over the time that I have here today, and I listened with great interest this morning and previous debates, and having had participated in previous discussions related to this bill, wanted to ensure that aspects of this are...
I'll make it easy. Is the honourable member going to be sharing his time? The honourable member for Battle River Crowfoot.
Yes, thank you very much. I was going to get there, so I appreciate that, but I will take this opportunity to let the table know that I will be splitting my time with my colleague, the new and very, very capable member from Manitoba, Portage Lisgar, that came in big shoes to fill, not maybe big size, but big shoes to fill in terms of his predecessor, the Honourable Candice Bergen, but I look forward to splitting my time with that. Now back, of course, Mr. Speaker, to the substance of C-34, where we have before us a bill that addresses aspects of what has become an increasingly problematic circumstance globally, where we have, at a time when there is specific demands associated with the global investment climate that has put at risk many of our supply chains. Now, Mr. Speaker, of course, we saw the practical outworkings of this when it came to during COVID, where supply chains saw things that many Canadians took for granted. That were you always expected to be able to see things like toilet paper on the shelf of our grocery stores. Yet, Mr. Speaker, we saw during COVID that the supply chain system was, and the numerous aspects of that, Mr. Speaker, were challenged. There were pressures that resulted in things like grocery store shelves being empty. We saw things like microchips that there was a shortage, which meant that there was a shortage of a whole host of things, Mr. Speaker, that many people would have not associated would be the case with a microchip shortage, from vehicle manufacturing to other things. And Mr. Speaker, as the specific relevance that has to do with C-34 is because when it comes to foreign investment, we have to ensure that as a nation, as a G7 country, we get it right when it comes to all aspects of how we permit specifically state-owned enterprises, but the larger context of foreign investment happening in our country. Mr. Speaker, I don't think anybody in this House would argue that there certainly is investment needed, and that Canada should be a destination to invest, a destination for capital. And we have seen that over the course of our history. And certainly I look back to the time when Stephen Harper was Prime Minister, the predictable business environment that existed within in this country was one that was envied around the world. And we saw in the midst of incredibly challenging global economic circumstances, Canada was a beacon of hope and predictability where people could invest and see some certainty. And over the course of the challenges that we've seen over the last number of years, whether that be with relation to the COVID pandemic, whether that be in relation to the host of concerns surrounding supply chains, or just the fact that over the last decade or so, there has been a radical shift in the geopolitical objectives of certain state players around the world. And I would notably say that the People's Republic of China would be at the top of that list, although not limited to them. But certainly their objectives have changed the global investment climate dramatically. And even, I've heard a lot of members from the opposite party criticize the past record. In fact, I believe it was the parliamentary secretary from Winnipeg had referenced that the Harper government had done some preliminary work on CETA. Well, I'm proud that it was Conservatives that negotiated the deal and the Liberals almost screwed it up. But we're able to, with support from Conservatives, be able to actually get that across the finish line. But, Mr. Speaker, over the last decade, there's been radical shifts that have taken place. And, of course, that has to be addressed, in our legislative frameworks governing some of these things need to ensure that they are responsive to that. And we have seen over the last number of years, specifically the last 8 years that this Prime Minister has been in power, that there has been an erosion of trust, as I've talked about often, but this includes into the investment climate in our country as we are dealing with significant advancements in things like technology. We're seeing a demand for things like critical minerals. We're seeing food supply chains being put at risk. We are seeing the need to ensure that we have tight parameters and an understanding so that not only does this protect Canadians first and foremost, but it also ensures that there is that investment certainty in our country, whether that's folks here at home investing. And, Mr. Speaker, I would say simply, quite often when we talk about things like investment, it gets lost by many folks that are maybe not trading stocks on a regular basis, or not staying in tune with the financial markets. They may see that as a headline, the TSX up or down or something like that. But, Mr. Speaker, the reason why this has such a particular relevance is that every single Canadian is in fact an investor. If you've ever paid into a pension fund, whether that be the CPP or otherwise, you are an investor, and to ensure that we have that predictable investment climate. And specifically, we were disappointed at committee that the Liberals were not more responsive to some of the very practical amendments that Conservatives have brought forward on this bill that would have ensured that a threshold, for example, to trigger a national security review was reduced so that Canadian resources, including intellectual property, that there was a safer and more secure environment to ensure that that those things couldn't fall into the wrong hands, as we've seen, unfortunately, having been the case over the last number of years. In fact, Mr. Speaker, if you can believe it, there were 10 amendments that Conservatives had brought forward that, practical things that we heard from testimony at committee that would have helped address some of what we believe ways that the bill could have been improved. So, Mr. Speaker, as I come down to the last minute or so of my speech, we have a need in this country to ensure that our investment climate responds to the demands of a modern supply chain, that we have everything that is required, whether that be the critical minerals that are so essential for the manufacturing of things like our cell phones, whether it's a host of other things that go into the economy of today and that economy that is being built for tomorrow. And it is absolutely essential that we do, in fact, get this right. But what is very, very unfortunate, Mr. Speaker, and I would make this point in terms of the larger conversation, not just related to Bill C-34, but that we have to take seriously that transactions, when it comes to foreign investment in Canada, we have to take seriously the national security implications. And this is not only when it comes to big multinational mergers and whatnot that may make headlines, but we heard at committee and we've heard throughout the course of debate that there's a host of periphery discussions that are required when it comes to strategic investments that may serve the geopolitical interests of foreign states, some of which are hostile to to our national interest. And if we don't take these things seriously, we can see a diminishment of Canada being able to not only have a secure economy for our people, but to be that secure investment environment for capital that is so very essential. So, Mr. Speaker, as we continue the debate on C-34, I hope that we can take seriously how important not only this bill is in terms of the issues that it is purported to address, but, Mr. Speaker, the host of concerns surrounding foreign investment and how we can ensure that we get it right so that Canadians can depend on a predictable environment for their capital and be that place that is where Canadians can benefit on the home front, most importantly of all. Thank you.